Cool.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Utkarsha, and today I will moderate the session on behalf of product people. I'll briefly introduce product people to you all, and then we'll have a presentation followed by a Q&A session and a networking event at the end. So about product people, we are a German-based product management consultancy, and we help companies efficiently discover and deliver great products faster. So how we do this is we do this by filling temporary product management needs in our clients' organization as interim PMs. We also help clients to quickly obtain high product profitability by offering product management consulting services. And we also support companies by providing product management training. We are also a product community builder, and we invite people. We invite product leaders to share their knowledge and experience around product management. So today we are glad to welcome Gaurav, product manager at international markets at Motorola Solutions, and he'll be sharing with us knowledge about product management for mission critical applications. Thank you, Gaurav, for joining us, and we all look forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
You can now start sharing your screen.
Thank you. So
don't forget the sound.
Yes, thanks again. So before we begin, at least it would be helpful if all of those who are on the Zoom session or on YouTube, it would help if you start putting your thoughts on what do you mean by mission critical? Do you understand the term mission critical? What does it signify to you? Maybe if we could have 15 seconds or 20 seconds, if you could just jot down in the chat window what your thoughts are on mission critical. What do you think mission critical is? Okay. Right. So I think, yeah, I'm going to start now. Probability of success is quite low. Okay, interesting. So let me start my presentation now, and I'll speak to some of the aspects that you put into the chat window. So just a brief introduction about me. That's I hope this is coming soon. So that's just a brief introduction about me. I'm a product manager with Motorola Solutions. I handle one of their portfolio products called Premier One CAD. To give you an introduction on what CAD is, let's say if you make a 112 or a 911 call for the emergency service, that call goes into a police control room or a central control room. So the person who takes the call at the other end is typically referred to as a call taker or a dispatcher. Now, it's this dispatcher who takes in all the details of the incident that's happened, of your emergency, and who sends the nearest, for example, police vehicle or fire engine or an ambulance to your place. So all of this software is really referred to as dispatching software, and that's the product that I manage. I lead the go-to-market for the international markets for this solution. This is just a brief caricature of myself. It's just I've handled some roles primarily in engineering. Then I was doing project management and agile. I was also doing some operations and delivery. I also was part of the Motorola sales team. So I was responsible for meeting up with customers and selling our solutions to them. And my recent stint is really in product management. I'm based in Berlin right now, but prior to being in Berlin, I was actually based in Krakow for about 3.5, 4 years, and prior to that in Bangalore. And this just talks about a bit about my personal interest. So, this is my LinkedIn profile if it's coming to. So feel free to connect. And in case you have any questions that we are not able to answer out here, please feel free to connect with me and we could discuss over LinkedIn. So some of the examples that you spoke about in the chat are very, very relevant. All of these are really mission critical systems. So whether that be a fire or a medical emergency or COVID for that matter. Or another example is if you have the local transport system, if there's a power outage to your local transport system, that's another emergency. If there's a police incident or a firing incident, if there's a chemical plant and that's leaking gas, for example, that's an emergency. Similarly, if you are, for example, trekking, or you are in a forest and you're lost and you don't know your location, that's an emergency. That's when seconds matter, or these seconds count. Similar examples are if you have a call center, a stock exchange, a hospital oxygen system, supply system. All of these are mission critical systems. So essentially what you mean by mission, so all of these are very, very valid examples. So what really is a mission critical system? It's really a system where your goals or your response really has to be achieved within a certain threshold each and every time. Now, what do these thresholds really mean? These thresholds could be, for example, call setup time. It could mean uptime of your system. It could also mean in how much time is a police officer dispatched to your location. It could also mean what is the audio level on your device. All of these are mission critical elements. Now, when you look at mission critical systems, really, mission critical systems, failure of any of these thresholds, or to meet the performance of any of these thresholds, really results in what? It can result in loss of lives. It can result in some deep social impact, or it can result in a financial liability. So in each of these cases that we saw prior to this, whether that be a car crash, or whether it could be a stock exchange going down, or it could be a power outage in the local railway system. All of these have very, very large impacts, and that's typically what happens in a mission critical system. That's where Motorola Solutions comes in. We are a market leader in mission critical communication, and by communication, it's not. We are most well recognized by the walkie-talkies that you would see on the road, with the security services, with the policemen. But we are beyond that. It's not only the voice-based communication. You can have communication that could be via messaging. It could be communication that happens over video. So we are a market leader in this. The other thing that we also do is command center software, which is the control room software, which is where I come in. I product manage some of the command center software. We also take care of video security and analytics. We for example, body-worn video. These days, you would see that there are a lot of cases about where you hear about evidence being made available through the body-worn cameras. So Motorola provides a lot of body-worn cameras. We also provide high-resolution cameras for enterprises for security needs. These are some of the acquisitions that we made recently, and some of the awards we won. One award that I'd like to point out is an award that we received for innovation. We are a very innovative company. We do a lot of innovation. We have a chief technology officer that does a lot of innovation. If you go to a Motorola Solutions website, you would definitely understand this more. Now, coming back to our theme, mission critical. When we talk about mission critical, there are a lot of under the hood requirements that come with mission critical. Um, Now, for those of you who are looking at this first image, if you try to read this, and the text is really written a bit illegibly for on purpose. The reason being that, look at this and think, is this written as don't shoot or is it do shoot? So if you're now look, think about it in really the first responders case where you're out there in the field, you're a police officer, and you get this message on your radio or to voice saying that shoot or don't shoot. If your audio quality is really not that good, or if the call setup time is very poor, or if there's a lot of delay or there's a lot of crackle in the voice quality, imagine the police officer at the other end who does not know, does he have to shoot or does he not have to shoot? So these are some requirements that are essential for mission critical behavior. Now, a lot of these examples that I'm going to be talking about are really from the domain of police and fire and the emergency services, because that's what I understand most. So I'll probably be giving you a lot of examples in this. So in this particular case, if your call is set up on time or it's not set up on time, and there's a delay or there's or your crackle in the audio in the call, then that impairs your performance, that impairs your goals, which is being able to shoot or not to shoot. Similarly, bandwidth spectrum, or so if you are transmitting if you're an officer or you are a member of the public and you're a citizen and you're transmitting video back into a control room, a police control room, if the bandwidth is low, if the spectrum is not available, then you won't be able to transmit all of that information back into the control room. I'll give you some nice examples here a bit later on some of these. Ruggedness. Now, let's say you are a police officer, you're there in the field, and and typically when you are a police officer, you really need your communication to happen to the control room or with your teams to be very effective. There should be no delay. Your network should always be up, so your ruggedness or the resilience of your network is important. The spectrum, the bandwidth should be available. Your devices that you have in your hand need to be really ruggedized, so they should be able to operate at a very extreme weather conditions. Whether you drop them in water or use them at very low temperatures, they should be functioning the same. If you're a fireman and you're actually using a device, but typically if you see firemen have gloves, right? So can the fireman with a glove actually be able to operate the smartphone, or are they able to make a call when they need to? All of these are part of the ruggedness, resilience factors that we look at when we look at mission critical systems. The next is audio levels. If you are a police officer and you are and there's an incident, let's say there's an attack at some place, there's always a lot of chaos, there's always a lot of noise. But irrespective of this noise, of this chaos, can you hear the audio level as clear as you need to, as if you were just sitting in a room where there was no noise? So there's a lot of emphasis that's placed on what is the audio level, what's the audio clarity level, what's the audio quality level. So again, going back to the example of shoot or don't shoot, can you, even in the midst of chaos, are you able to hear it very clearly, shoot or don't shoot? Finally, battery. That's another very critical item. Typically, devices or any system has to be able to meet certain battery level requirements. So if you're really using an application, for example, a mobile application on an Android device, if you're using the application for 8 hours continuously, does your battery die in the middle of the shift, or does it continue beyond that? Can it last for at least one entire shift? So again, battery is another critical requirement that comes in for mission critical system. Now, all of these requirements are really not the holy grail. These are really just, and they're really not exhaustive. This is really examples and that I've come across through my experience in as a product manager and sales and engineering. But this is this is really not only the exhaustive set of requirements. There are a whole lot more. Now, the next thing that you need to know is in these kind of applications, mission critical applications, we placed a lot of emphasis on edge cases. Now, that could mean a lot of stress testing. It could mean penetration testing or using different devices, off-beat location, vertical coordinates. Uh, Again, some examples that I would like to bring up here is now, as at Motorola Solutions, we don't in most of our products we can't do the typical A/B testing where you make a change on a website or an app and see as to what's the traffic flow based on the new layout. Typically, when we do any kind of testing, even with our end customers, it usually is very expensive because the cost of experimentation is very high. We cannot roll out an update to, for example, a police officer or a fireman who's there in the field and expect them to start using the app as if there's been no change. There's a lot of training that's involved. There's a lot of installation that's involved. There's security elements involved in that. So there's the testing and the piloting of your new feature, new functionality itself is a very long cycle. Um, in another example is uh, Motorola runs the public safety network in Norway. It's called Nordnet. So typically, the entire country of Norway is covered by the public safety system, the technology that Motorola provides for the radio systems. What typically happens is at this point of time, if you think about the geography of a place like Norway, it has 20, 30,000 islands. There are a whole lot of road tunnels. There are also undersea tunnels that are there. So if a person has to call has to call up at any of these locations, the call should always go through. Typically, your call setup times might be of the order of 300 milliseconds. Does the call go through every time within 300 milliseconds? So these are the kind of extreme stress test cases that we have to run. So at all these type of locations, whether you're on the mountain or you're in an undersea tunnel or in a road tunnel, can your call be set up within 300 milliseconds? Does it have the audio level that you need at every point of time? It has to be the same type of audio quality. That's why we spend a lot of time in also testing out the edge cases, doing a lot of penetration testing, because these may be mandated requirements by customers or even by sometimes by the regulators. Now another aspect of this is the quad constraint. Now, typically in a lot of our tenders, a lot of our contracts. If you, for example, if you as a user were to buy, let's say, a VPN package, from NordVPN or any of the other suppliers, what do? You typically look at a feature-to-feature comparison between all of these packages, right? But it's pretty much the same out here. We look at our customer, look at what is the feature matrix that you offer. Does Motorola have the same set of features as any of the other competitors? But typically, what makes them stick to us is these aspects: it's performance, it's quality, and whether it's user experience. Now, of course, this is my version of the user experience. It's a poor version of this user experience of this painting. But typically what happens is that it's items such as performance, quality, user experience that keep customers, and they prevent the customers from leaving your solution because they prefer the performance, quality, and user experience of your system. So it's what we say is the quad constraint of feature, performance, quality, and user experience. Features bring the customer in, but quality, performance, and user experience make them stay, really. So on whenever you're going for a tender, you would typically look at a feature comparison, but it's items like these that become critical once you deploy, once you install at a customer site. Again, the cost of acquisitions of customers in the space is very high. Typically, uh, right from the time when we started discussions with the customer to when it's actually installed, it does take a lot of time, primarily because we have to look at each of these requirements, as I spoke about in these cases. Again, manage the knowns, tread the unknowns. Now, as I was telling you, it's really while we have a risk-driven approach where we rinse and repeat, so we do go to a customer, we show them. It's very, very similar to A/B testing. Our customers try out our solution, give us a lot of qualitative feedback, and then we make changes based on that. But the cost of doing experiments is high in this because the impacts are high. The applications that we have typically go for public safety purposes, meaning that there are lives at stake. If you give an application to a police officer or to a fireman, you need to know that the application will function at its best. The policeman or the fireman know how to exactly use these applications. They know the best way to use it. There are no bugs in the system. So the cost of doing experiments is also very high. It is difficult to do it. And we rely on a lot of qualitative feedback from our customers. Our customers are very, very open with us. They tell us exactly what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So we do get a lot of qualitative feedback from our customers. User mechanics. Now here I would like to just show a small video. It's a slightly unconventional video, but it's helpful to understand the point out here. I'm gonna show this. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna go back here. I hope
a wrong call at first glance quickly.
Is this audible? Is this coming through?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Turned out to be a call for help. Luckily for an Ohio woman, her 911 dispatcher was listening very carefully. Michaela Marshall has the story.
Oregon 911.
I would like to order a pizza at...
You called 911 to order a pizza?
Yeah, apartment.
This is the wrong number to call for a pizza.
No, you're not.
I'm getting you now.
In his 14 years of service, this is a call Oregon dispatcher Tim Tennick has never gotten before.
You see it on Facebook, but it's not something that anybody has ever been trained for. We're just trained to listen.
He says domestic violence calls are common, but not like this.
Is the other guy still there?
Yeah. I need a large pizza.
All right. How about medical? You need medical?
No. With pepperoni.
After this exchange, Tennick alerted officers to hurry.
Turn your sirens off before you get there. Caller ordered a pizza and agreed with everything I said that there's domestic violence going on.
Tennick said,
so this is, a very unconventional example, but this is something that happens also in a control room. If you saw the dispatcher out there, he had like 4 or 5 different monitors. He, had multiple keyboards, and this is typically the scenario in a control room. So imagine the stress level for the dispatcher as well. He's got multiple screens. He has to be always actively, looking at all of them. He has to see what's happening on social media out here. He has to keep an alert on what the caller is saying. So we call it workplace gymnastics, really. So they're actually doing so many things. Their eyes are darting between so many different screens. They're stretching from one keyboard to another. They're swiveling from one computer screen to another. So it's really gymnastics at workplace that they really have to do. So this is our typical user. So what we saw so far is in the previous slides was really what are the requirements of a mission critical system. what here we are seeing is what is the typical user that uses some of these applications. So let's take a look at now what do we do in order to help this user. Be a simplifier, be simple things matter, workflow harmonization. What that typically means is that you look at what are the various steps that either the user, the police officer in the field, or a control room user does day in, day out. What are the steps that they do again and again? And look at harmonizing this workflow, make it simple for them to do this information, to enter this information just once. At Motorola, we have a product called Pronto. What that does is, if a police officer is there in the field and there's an incident, typically if you see a police officer uses a pen and paper and they take down all the notes from whoever they're interviewing. Now, what we have is a product that's called Pronto, which allows the police officer to detail and to record all of this evidence electronically. So that means whether it's a photo they take, whether it's an interview they do, whether it's notes that they take, they do it all electronically. So what happens is they don't have to go back to the police station and actually enter that information all over again. So we've seen that saves about 20% of their time from having to re-enter that information once on the street and once in the police station. So these are very, very simple things that make a very big difference. It allows them to be much more productive and engage more with the community rather than spending time writing reports. Again, design is huge. There's this Japanese concept called MA. It's MA, but it's pronounced MAH, MA. And that typically says that the meaning of that typically is really gap or space or void. What that means is that less is more. That's what you do is basically you don't clutter up your application, you don't clutter up your workspace, you don't create too many windows, too many pop-ups, too many menu options, which just serve to distract a user. You keep it as simple as possible. So in fact, some examples of from this I can tell you. So let's say you are a user, you're a police officer, and you have a phone. Okay. Now tell me how many, if you have to actually make, or let's say you're just a citizen of the public, you're there in an emergency and you need to use your phone to call up somebody because it's an emergency. How many device clicks, how many clicks on your smartphone would you have to do to actually make a phone call? You'd have to hit the power button, you'll have to go home, go click, call button, and then you'll have to scroll somewhere, press contact, and then make a call. So that's about 6 to 7 clicks before you're even able to call up someone when they're in an emergency, right? So of course, you may have some new phones might have, for example, an emergency button, or you may have to click the power button multiple times to actually hit an emergency. But typically think about the design of that on the smartphone. If your power button and your volume button were, for example, interchanged, wouldn't that make a big difference? Wouldn't that make it much more difficult for you to actually enter the phone and make a call? So all of these things actually are a big impact in this. All of these designs have a big impact on the usability. Similarly, there are a lot of these examples like this, which actually tell you about how you can make the applications much more simpler to use, rather than make it so complex that it's difficult for a user to actually navigate between them. So we place a lot of emphasis in keeping the applications very simple to use. We integrate them under the hood, rather than making the user fill up information once, information twice, and again the third time. So you have to make it very simple for a user to use the application. Another thing that we have to focus on a lot in this space is the regulators and standards. So in the EU, we have to follow whatever the EU laws mandate. In North America, we have to follow, for example, the NINA standards, the North American Association. So it's a 911 association. In the other standards that we follow are, for example, the ISO standards or 3GPP standards. So there's a very, very high degree of compliance that we have to do in order to actually enter the markets, because we also have to comply with all of these standards. So many of our customers actually mandate that we comply with these standards in order to be able to bid for them. Finally, of course, if you see Yoda, it's Yoda is associated with a lot of smart thinking, wisdom, knowledge. This space, this mission critical space, requires a lot of domain expertise as well. It does require you to actually collaborate a lot with users who are there in this field. Also, you also, as a layman, you have to actually go to a control room, or you have to go out there in the field, learn how the users are actually using your application, what are the workflows. So there's a very high degree of reliance on the domain knowledge that you have. Finally, my final takeaway is here for product management of mission critical system. Now, if you, from all these slides, you would have seen that most of the principles that I've spoken about are ubiquitous. They're very, very similar to product management of other systems. So that could be, fintech, it could be logistics, it could be e-commerce. So the principles of product management are largely common. There are, of course, differences, which I have also spoken about in the previous slide. There are a lot of problems yet to be discovered, and there are a lot of solutions yet to be discovered. I think as product managers, we have the unique opportunity to identify a lot of new problems that are out there. For example, there are very, very critical issues. For example, there could be fake news, there could be financial frauds, there could be equity of distribution of resources. There could be pollution. There could be, reducing plastic waste. So there are a lot of yet problems that we as product managers could take care of, whether in the digital world or whether in the physical world. So there are all of these problems yet to exist, and it's just for us to identify them and solve them. Emotions. Now, while in many of the previous meetups that I've attended out here as well, a lot of product managers have said we work with data. In my opinion, I think a lot of product managers also work with emotions. Why? Because we feel what the customer feels. We really walk in the customer's shoes, whether they're happy with something of a product, whether they're not happy, they're upset, or they don't like some aspects about the products. I think we as product managers are uniquely positioned to identify with the emotions of customers and feel them ourselves. COVID, while 2020 has been a very, very strange time for all of us, I believe there have been a lot of cases where product teams, engineering teams, IT companies have really had COVID heroes within their organizations. And why I say this is because a lot of these companies have innovated, a lot of our companies have innovated actually to offer COVID-ready solution, or innovated so quickly to be able to actually offer new solutions for their end users, overnight or within a period of a few weeks. So I like to think of some of these product teams also as being COVID heroes. Even at Motorola, what we've done is we've introduced some new solutions where you may have a police control room user, a call taker, or a dispatcher actually work from home, which was never considered possible earlier. Where, typically when you make a 112 call, it goes into a control room, but now your control room is actually somebody's house, so somebody is working from home. These are aspects where you offer software or offer solutions during such challenging times. So at the end of the day, I think product managers really look at creating some kind of legacy behind. So, we all would like to leave the world a better place. The technology, we would like to use technology in a better way to make things good for much better for our fellow beings. So we would all like to definitely leave a legacy behind. My last point here is really that we all need to communicate with each other as product managers. And here I would like to thank actually product people, the team at product people. They have allowed us to communicate a lot, share all our information with each other, network a lot. and start talking to each other, share inputs, share feedback with each other. So thanks to the product people for giving us a chance to communicate and network and share information as product managers. That's it. Thank you very much for your time. Any questions now?
Thank you, Gaurav, for an insightful presentation. So now we are open to Q&A, and you can type your questions in chat. And those of you who are joining from YouTube, Facebook, we have posted the link, and you are welcome to join us on Zoom and post your questions there.
Okay, live stream will stop in 1 second.